So this is the mighty Loch Ness, on what is perhaps the only day of the year that there's sunshine in Scotland. And today I'm going to drop this big camera rig right here into the deepest part of Loch Ness. Let's see what's swimming around down there.
The plan is to drop the camera at the top and bottom of a slope that runs from the famous Urquhart Bay down to the deepest point of the loch.
And this is the first time that I've dropped this new big old camera rig into the depths. So we've got a housing here with an Insta360 Ace Pro 2 in it. We've got a bright LED light because it's going to be very dark and dingy down there. There it is. We have an aluminium tube that's got a big old battery in it, and it's all strapped to this massive metal frame that then runs via a rope all the way up to the surface to these two big orange buoys that will hopefully sit beautifully on the surface out there. Right, bait time. Good old mackerel, very bloody, very oily, very scenty. A smelt. This smells a bit like cucumber actually. And then finally, I'm not sure why I've got this, but we've got some squid. I'm pretty sure nothing in this big old freshwater loch has ever seen a cephalopod, but I had it in the freezer, so we're gonna give it a go. On goes the bait cage. Yeah, it does stink. All our ropes are attached. Hopefully, carabiner is attached. Camera's rolling. Good luck. Okay, in she goes. We are off. Okay, first buoy is away. Second buoy also away. And now, we wait.
The peat-stained waters of Loch Ness are so effective at absorbing light that even at around 60 metres, it's pitch black. Light is the foundation for almost all aquatic life, so could anything even survive down here without it? We'd have to wait and see, but in the meantime, I was busy hatching a plan back up at the surface.
Now, the problem with a body of water that is as ginormous as Loch Ness is that I imagine there's a lot of fish in here, but they're all huddled up in small little pockets where the food is, where the structure is, where the shelter is. But I've got a plan, because we're also going to send down this. This is the roving rig. The plan with this is we're going to drop it in some different spots for about an hour each time. We're going to go along the bay, find some shelter and weird features and piers and whatever elsewhere, and hopefully this will help us find the fish. And like before, I'm not entirely sure what fish are down there. So we've got a big bucket of all sorts of stuff. We've got ground bait, there's some meat in it, some little sprats, and I also stuck in some sweet corn just because it'll stand out nicely on the peaty bottom. Peaty bottom. Anyway, let's go send down the roving rig. Needless to say, I spoke too soon. The sun's gone in. Oh dear. Right, so in bodies of water that are so enormous, it's always good to look for little features. So this old dead tree that's sticking out looks pretty good. So I think we'll do the first one down there somewhere. Camera's rolling. Looks good. Roving camera 1 is down.
At the surface, the peat allows sunlight to pass through and reach the bottom. But the shallows have a different problem. Wind, that causes big waves and stirs up the silt and wrecks visibility. But this turbidity is also good at distributing the scent from the bait, and it wasn't long until perhaps the biggest fish I've ever recorded on one of my baited cameras came in to feed. This is a stickleback, a member of a group of fish known for their sharp dorsal spines that they stick up when they feel like it. They're small, but they're fearsome predators if you're small enough to fit in their mouths. Needless to say, it doesn't bode well when the bait is larger than the creatures that are investigating it. This individual seemed more interested in using the cage as a shelter than feeding on its contents, although eventually it found a small chunk of meat amongst the silt and swam off to consume it. The shallows were a little barren. We needed a different plan and a better field of view.
So the camera I've been using to film everything so far is the one that's filming me right now, the Insta360 Ace Pro 2. But I'm going to try, and drop Insta360's other camera, the X5. This is a 360 camera. But I imagine that the dark, peaty waters of Loch Ness probably won't do this camera justice. So here's some footage from some clearer, more tropical waters.
So for you camera nerds, this camera can shoot up to 8K and 5.7K at 60 FPS, all in full HDR. Also, its large sensor, 3 AI chips, and innovative pure video mode means it shoots world-class 360 video that restores the natural colours of the underwater world you're shooting in, reduces noise, and boosts clarity. The battery life is also insane, recording up to 235 minutes on their new Ultra battery, and if it does die, you can recharge it to 100% in just 35 minutes.
The other thing I love about this camera is just how easy it is to edit all the footage after your dive or whatever else you've been doing with it, like chucking it into Loch Ness, inside Insta360's free studio app.
You can pan, tilt, zoom, do whatever you want just by clicking and moving around, and the camera stitches the images together in a way that makes the selfie stick invisible.
It also comes with this fantastic underwater housing that's waterproof down to 60 meters. Let's give it a toughness test. Yep, pretty solid that. If you want to snag one of these cameras, guys, and also support the channel, there's a QR code that's up on the screen now, and also a link in the description. But for now, it's time to get the Insta360 X5 into Loch Ness.
The benefit of the 360 camera, of course, is that it gives a much better field of view. Anything swimming behind or above the camera can be spotted, and it didn't take long for the first shapes to start moving in the distance. Now, Loch Ness is home to a number of salmonid species, including brown trout and sea trout, Atlantic salmon, and Arctic char. The problem with the 360 camera, though, is its field of view is so large that it's difficult to get a clear ID on any visitors that keep their distance, especially when they spook and zoom off. It's possible that that was an Atlantic salmon. Now that we knew the fish were here, it was time to send the original rig back down to see if we could get a closer look, and it turns out it's not just the salmonids that patrol these shallow bays. After some time, the fish picked up the confidence to swim closer. This is a brown trout, possibly a sea trout, the difference being whether it migrates out to sea or not. Unfortunately, this one didn't hang around long enough for me to ask, but some of the creatures in this loch don't swim up in the water, they slither through the rocks. This is a European eel. Now, these eels are critically endangered due to the usual concoction of habitat loss, pollution, and overfishing. You'd think they'd accept a helping hand, but this one wasn't remotely interested in a free meal inside the cage. Sticklebacks also patrol these slightly deeper waters, picking at any morsels of food drifting through the water. Although, if I was them, I'd probably not swim around so confidently, given what the European eels do to small fish. Like many eels, these European eels dig around in the rocks and use their pectoral fins and muscular bodies to create leverage and tear apart their prey. But as the action cooled in the shallows, it was time to go and pick up the main camera, and I've got some exciting news.
Right, for those of you that have been watching for a while, I've got a special announcement because we've got a winch. There she is, just got to get her in the boat now. Woo!
Unfortunately, the 3 hours of footage we recorded on this drop looked like this. Just a steady stream of organic matter, silt, and who knows what else, drifting past. So the shallows have fish, the deeper parts of the bay are fishless, so the only other place to try was at the bottom of the loch.
So we're heading to spot number 2 now. We're going to aim for about 150 metres. The weather's not looking too good and the waves are picking up, so hopefully we can get out there okay. This is proper Loch Ness, so this is none of this sunshine from this morning.
Now, the deepest part of Loch Ness is about 230 metres, but down there, the bottom is almost certainly just a bed of thick, lifeless sludge and silt. It's also flat and featureless, and therefore almost certainly lifeless. So rather than guarantee failure, we decided to drop the camera at the base of the steep slope, an area that predators, if they're there, are likely to patrol. Back at the surface, I was busy dropping the roving rig deeper, but there was a problem.
Right, it's a bit cold and windy in the loch, so I'm going to be lazy and drop the next one, I think, off our big boat. Somewhere down there, I think, about 10 metres probably. It'll be a good opportunity to see if there's some bigger fish swimming around away from shore, because obviously this is probably a bit featureless and empty and barren, but I might be wrong. Obviously this big old boat is a big feature itself, so you never know, maybe there's some big old pikes hiding underneath it. Right, I think down here looks pretty good to me. Let's get some fresh bait in the cage. Close her up. And we are rolling. Oh, that's never good.
Now, we know the peat suspended in the water sucks up photons, so I knew it would be dark at 8 meters. I just didn't think that it would be this dark. As a comparison, this is what the ocean in Cornwall looks like at 8 meters. Peat is the reason why Loch Ness isn't that productive. Without light, producers like plants can't photosynthesize, and so the base of the food chain falls apart. But if we turn up the brightness, it turns out that Loch Ness's inhabitants like to sit down in the dark. Shapes and shadows drifted past in the distance, likely trout, similar to the one that came in for a closer look. But unlike the trout, this eel was more confident, attacking the buffet of meat, fish and other baits inside the cage. The activity also encouraged a second European eel to investigate. However, there's a much better way to film life in the darkness, if you have the right tools.
Why do I do this? Right, because we've been getting lots of eels and stuff, and there's loads of fish jumping, I'm sending down this thing just here. This, you can see the light, oh, not that one, not that one, is a night vision camera. This is infrared. The plan being, of course, that any sensitive predators like pike or perch wouldn't really like bright light, but they won't mind that because they probably can't see it very well. The eels probably don't care because the eels have got terrible eyesight, but yeah, oh, for goodness sake. Right, let's get this in the water. Bait's looking good. We've got a big old mackerel head in there and some sprats. Oh, this is miserable. In she goes. Fingers crossed for some big predators.
But darkness isn't the only problem when filming in these conditions. The other problem is moisture. Warm, humid air at the surface gets trapped inside the camera housings, and then condenses on the lens as the camera is lowered into the cold waters of the loch. We did manage to film some of the loch's limited photosynthesizing life. I'm not 100% sure what this is, but it's likely stonewort or another similar algae. On the second drop, I added the infamous bait waggler to add some movement to the mackerel on top of the cage. To add to the list of problems, the battery died prematurely, although did briefly come back to life. We did, eventually, get lucky. The brown trout that had been keeping their distance felt a little more confident coming close when illuminated by the infrared beam. Kind of.
So, if you've seen my videos before, you will know that I'm not usually on big fresh... Oh my word. I'm not usually on big freshwater lochs like this. I'm usually in the middle of the ocean at night looking for weird sharks and other things that live at the bottom of the sea. And we've already found a ton of cool stuff. In fact, I think we now have the first footage of about 5 deep water sharks and rays, as in no one ever has filmed them alive before. Now, whilst all the footage will eventually make it here on YouTube, I first of all post it over on my Patreon. As you can probably imagine, dropping and building these cameras isn't particularly cheap or easy. So if you feel able to chip in a few dollars a month just to help support these crazy deep sea adventures, that would be massively appreciated. But regardless, guys, all I'll ever ask is that you just continue watching these videos on YouTube. And yeah, let's go find some more crazy stuff.
When I set out on this mission, I genuinely thought there was a good chance we'd record nothing. The peat prevents Loch Ness from providing the right conditions for abundant life, so recording sticklebacks, hunting eels, and abundant salmonids in the shallows was a great success. But really, you're watching this video to see what we found at the bottom. The answer is no large creatures, but it turns out there is life here. If you look closely, from time to time the suspended crud drifting past the camera begins to move. It turns out that a lot of this is alive, a mix of the larval stages of your favourite summer insect, midges, as well as worms and crustaceans. Some, like the midge larva, hatch at the bottom and migrate to the surface. Others remain fully aquatic, never leaving the dark depths of the loch. Could this life provide the basis of a food chain that supports larger life in the depths of Loch Ness, like the giant sea sturgeon? What do you think?
She's up. I'll see you next time.
If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you're in the mood for more, I am 100% sure you will love this video.